Hi, boys and girls. Mrs. Donaldson here. I'm here to read to you Chapter 10 of How to Steal a Dog. I hope you're enjoying the book. Here we go. Shh. I put my finger to my lips and motioned for Toby to stay behind. We tiptoed along the hedge in front of the big brick house. When we got to the gate, I scanned the street, then I whispered to Toby, "You be the lookout. If anybody comes outside or a car comes or anything, you whistle like I showed you this morning, okay?" Toby nodded. I peered over the gate. The front door of the house was closed. I glanced toward the driveway. No car. The yard was empty and quiet. "Here, Willie," I called out real soft. Nothing. But he was out. He was inside. I wondered if I should go on up to the porch. Probably not. If somebody was home, they were liable to see me. "Maybe you should whistle," Toby whispered. "Okay." I whistled one time and waited. Sure enough, Willie stuck his head out of that little doggy door. When he saw me, he dashed out the door and up to the gate. "Hey, Willie," I whispered, sticking my hand through the gate to pet him. He stood on his hind legs and he put his front paws on the gate. His tail wagged so hard, his whole body wiggled. He licked my hand like it was a T-bone steak. "You want to come with us?" I said. He cocked his head and he peered up at me, and then I swear he nodded his head. If he could have talked, I was sure that he would have said, "Heck yeah, I want to come with you." So, quick as I could, I lifted the latch on the gate and I opened it just enough to reach my arm in. My heart was pounding so hard, all I could hear was the thump, thump, thump in my ears. I knew I had to keep myself moving or else I was liable to start thinking. And if I started thinking, I was liable to think I shouldn't be doing this. So I turned my mind to off and I grabbed Willie's collar. I pulled him through the gate and out onto the sidewalk. He kept wagging his tail and looking at me with his shiny black eyes. I took the string out of my pocket and I tied it to his flea collar. "Okay, let's go," I said to Toby, and I took off running. I ran down Whitmore Street, around the corner, and into the woods. Willie ran along beside me. Every now and then he leaped up on me and nibbled at my feet like it was the most fun game we were playing ever. Once in a while, he'd just let out a little yip. When we were far enough into the woods, and that I was sure that no one could see us from the road, I stopped to catch my breath. I put my hand on my pounding heart and I leaned against a tree. Toby ran up and stopped beside me. "We did it," he hollered. "Shh." I clamped my hand over his mouth. "Somebody might hear us. You've got to be really quiet." Willie sat in front of us with his tongue hanging out, panting. His tail wagged on the ground. Swish, swish, swish. I knelt down and I ran my hand along his back. He closed his eyes and he leaned against me. "It's okay, fella," I said. "Don't be scared. Me and Toby are nice." He scratched behind his ear with his hind leg, making the tag on his collar jingle. "What do we do now?" Toby said. "We take him to the house and we tie him up on the porch." "Well, what if he doesn't like it there?" "He's just going to have to be there for a little while," I said. "As soon as his owners put up the reward sign, we'll take him back home." "Oh." Toby knelt and he rubbed the top of Willie's head. "What if his owner don't put up a reward sign?" I flapped my hand at Toby. "Trust me, that lady is going to want him back more than anything. She's probably making a reward sign right now." I made my voice sound calm and sure, but a funny little feeling was tapping at my insides. A feeling like maybe if I had done a really bad thing. I took in a deep breath, trying to swallow the feeling down to keep it from growing bigger. I unbuckled Willie's green collar and I tossed it into the bushes. Tap, tap. There was that feeling again, tapping at the insides like it was trying to tell me something. "What'd you do that for?" Toby said. I rolled my eyes. "Think about it, Toby." Toby's eyebrows squeezed together and he bit his lip. "Because we don't need it anymore?" he said. I sighed. "No, Dumbo, because we can't take him back to his owner with his collar on, or else she'd wonder how come he had the collar at all. Her phone number is right there on the tag. Or she'll wonder why we didn't call her at all. Her phone number is right there on the tag." "Oh," Toby nodded, but he still looked confused. I swear sometimes he is dumber than dirt. "Come on," I motioned for Toby to follow me. We made our way through the woods behind the houses on Whitmore Road. I could hear the cars on the highway up ahead, so I was pretty sure we were going in the right direction. Willie trotted along beside me, happy as can be. Every now and then, he stopped to sniff the ground or root through the rotting leaves. Once, he stopped to dig, sending dirt and leaves and twigs flying out behind him and making me and Tony laugh. He sure was a funny dog. When we got to the highway, I stooped down behind the bushes along the edge. I handed the string leash to Toby. Here, I said, hold this while I see if any cars are coming. I checked in both directions. No cars. I went back to where Toby sat with his arm around Willie. Okay, now listen, I said. We got to run across the highway, then through the vacant lot over there. I'm pretty sure we can cut through the woods to get to the old house. He nodded. I took the string from him and I dashed across the highway with Willie leaping along beside me. We kept running until we made it to the edge of the gravel road leading to the old house. The whole time, Willie pranced and yipped and jumped up on me. Once in a while, he grabbed the string in his mouth and he gave it a tug. When we got to the house, Willie perked his ears up and he watched me. We're here, fella, I said, scratching the top of his head. He looked at that run-down, boarded-up house, and then he looked back at me. I had a feeling I knew what he was thinking. It's okay, Willie, I said. You won't be here long, I promise. He cocked his head at that cute little way he does. I don't know how he did it, but that little dog could make you love him more than just by looking at him. I sat down in the dusty road and I put my arm around him. He crawled right into my lap and he licked my face. His licks weren't all slobbery like most dogs. It's spooky here, Toby said in that whiny voice of his. I knew if I didn't do something fast, he was liable to turn into his baby self and start crying or something. You hold Willie and I'll make a path to the back porch, I said. I pushed through the sticker bushes and the vines, mashing them down and breaking off branches till there was a clear path to the house, to the back part of the house. It was dark and it was damp back there. You couldn't even see the sky through the overgrown trees. The tiny porch leaned slightly, like any minute it was going to fall right off the back of the house. The steps leading up to it, where they were loose and they were rotten, one of them was broken all the way through. The screen door, it just dangled from hinges. Come on, I called to Toby. He and Willie came around the corner of the house and he stopped. No way, Georgina, Toby said. We can't put Willie in there. Listen, Toby, I said. This is the best place. Nobody will see him, and he won't get wet if it rains. And besides, he won't be here long. I watched Toby's face, but he didn't look convinced. And we'll come and stay with him after school and all, I added. Toby swiped at the tears that he had started. You're mean, he said. Darn. Why'd you have to go and say that? I sure didn't want to hear it, because that was exactly how I was feeling, mean. Toby, listen. I put both hands on his shoulders and I looked him square in the eye. Aren't you tired of living in the car? He hung his head and he nodded a tiny little bit. Don't you want to have a real place to live? With walls and beds and a bathroom and all? He nodded again. Then we need to help Mama get some money, I said. And this is the only thing I can think of. Can you think of another way? I bent down and I tried to look at him in the eye, but his head was hanging too low. All I could see was his long, dirty hair all tangled up and ratty looking. Then we got to do this, I said. We'll take good care of Willie. We'll take him right back home just as soon as we can, and then we'll get the reward money and everything will be good. I jingled Toby's shoulders. Okay, I added. I knew Toby didn't believe me because I wasn't sure I believed myself. That old tapping feeling was getting bigger, and in my head, I was thinking maybe I was messing up. And I was starting to think how I wished I could go back in time to the hour before, or the day before, or the week before. But I knew I couldn't do that. I was there behind that awful old house with that cute little dog looking at me, and I knew it was up to me to make everything turn out good like I had planned. I took the string leash from Toby and I led Willie up the creaky steps to the porch. This isn't so bad, I called out to Toby. The top half of the porch had been screened in once, but now what was left was the rusty old screen hung in tatters. Leaves and pine needles had blown in and covered the floor, settling in the corners in damp, moldy piles. I pushed some of the wet leaves aside, trying to make a clean spot. Then I knelt down and I took Willie's head in both of my hands. "Don't be scared, okay?" I said. "We'll be back real soon and everything will be fine." Then I rubbed my nose back and forth against his, an Eskimo kiss. Willie rested his chin in my hands and he gazed up at me like he believed every word I said. "What if he gets hungry?" Toby called from the bottom of the steps. Hungry? I haven't even thought about that. I couldn't believe Toby was thinking up something else I had left out of my How to Steal a Dog notes. "I said, what if he gets hungry?" Toby called out. "I've got that all worked out," I lied. My mind raced, trying to think of how I was going to feed Willie. And what if I couldn't get back here every day? How long could a dog go without food? "And water," Toby said. "Dogs need water, you know. He might die if he didn't have water." "Shut up, Toby." That's all I could think to say. And it did the trick. He shut up. But it didn't help me feel any better. I tied the string to the doorknob and I said goodbye to Willie. Then I led the way back through the weeds and briar bushes toward the road. I was glad Toby was quiet as we walked because I had a lot of thinking to do about food and water for Willie, about what I'd done, about what to do next. But it was hard to get my thoughts all straightened out with my insides kicking up like they were. That tapping feeling was turning into full-on banging. End of chapter 10. I hope you enjoy the rest of the book.